Any of this sound familiar? Maybe you're being told you have all the records, but you just know there's stuff missing. Or you're trying to defend your own reputation against some pretty vague allegations, all while this clock is ticking in the background. It is an incredibly stressful place to be, and you're not alone in feeling that way.
But here's the thing. You are not powerless. Not at all. This is about giving you a clear, step-by-step strategy. We're going to move you from a position of just reacting to everything to one of proactive, informed action.
So, the foundation for your entire case, everything, is the evidence. Our first and honestly most powerful tool is all about getting your hands on all of your data. And we do that using something called a subject access request, or SAR for short. Now the key here is to be specific. Don't just ask for your file. No, you want to demand everything. We're talking emails, internal notes, even specific legal documents like deprivation of liberty authorizations. And you definitely want the audit trails. This is so crucial because it shows you exactly who they've shared your data with and, just as importantly, where they got it from. Leave no stone unturned.
Okay, so what happens when they ignore you or they send you a response that you know is incomplete? Well, you follow this simple escalation process. It's a 1, 2, 3 punch. First, you send your detailed SAR. They've got 1 month. If they miss that, you send a final chaser, giving them just 7 more days. And after that, you file a formal complaint with the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO. This shows them you're methodical and you absolutely mean business.
And check this out. This is such a great example of the power of language. Using a subject line like this one in your chaser email, it's a game changer. It immediately tells them you know your rights and you're not afraid to escalate. Trust me, it gets a much faster and more complete response than just a polite following up email.
Okay, let's grab our second tool. Once you have that data, you can really start to challenge their story, especially when it comes to unfair allegations, or, those heartbreaking restrictions on seeing a loved one.
This is a really common scenario. A care provider might be limiting your visits, and they'll say it's in the person's best interests under something called a Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards, or a DoLS authorization. But the big question is that authorization even lawful?
You have every right to see every single piece of this paperwork. Demand the full capacity assessment and find out who did it and when. Make them state in writing the specific legal reason they're using to restrict your visits. Because if they can't produce this, or if it's full of holes, then that restriction might be completely unlawful. And that becomes a really powerful lever for you.
Now, let's talk about false allegations. So often, they're just these vague, damaging notes in a file. Your job is to fight that vagueness with cold, hard facts. You're going to create a concise, factual rebuttal, packed with timestamps, with evidence, with witness details. You're literally replacing their flimsy narrative with your undeniable one.
And please do not forget this part. This is probably the most important step. It is not enough to just send your rebuttal in. You have to demand, in writing, that it is physically attached to the original false record. And, just as critically, that it gets sent to every single person who saw the original allegation. This is how you actively undo the damage.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit, because some of these issues are incredibly time-sensitive. This part of our toolkit is all about moving with urgency when that clock is ticking. 1 year, that's it. In a lot of cases, that is the strict time limit you have to start a claim for defamation, starting from the day that damaging statement was made public. That is not a lot of time, which is why what you do first is so important.
So what's the plan? Right now, immediately, you preserve every shred of evidence. Save emails as PDFs, take screenshots of everything. Then, using that data from your SAR, you figure out every single time that false statement was published and exactly who saw it. And finally, you have to get urgent advice. And think about sending a formal letter of claim just to protect your position.
This toolkit also has to cover the absolute most serious circumstances. If you have deep concerns that neglect might have played a role in a person's death, there is a very specific path you need to follow to make sure a coroner investigates.
It starts with building an undeniable case. You gather all the clinical and care records, and you create a factual, evidence-based timeline of what happened. Then, with that evidence organized, you write directly to the coroner, and you spell out your specific concerns. And, getting an independent expert opinion early on, that can be invaluable in highlighting the critical issues for the coroner. All right, we've covered all the tools. Now let's put them all together into a really powerful, immediate action plan. This is what you can do the moment this explainer is over. Starting today, don't send just one SAR. Send separate, detailed requests to every single organization involved.
the council, the care home, the NHS trust, all of them. Go ahead and draft that one-page factual rebuttal we talked about, and get your formal complaints lodged. This is all about creating immediate momentum.
And for this week, you keep that pressure on. Escalate to the ICO if you still don't have all your data. Get that urgent legal advice about time limits, and start organizing all your evidence into an indexed bundle. That level of organization shows everybody that you are serious, you're prepared, and you are in control of the facts.
You know, the crucial point in all of this is that you're not asking for favors. This is about enforcing your fundamental rights. The right to your own data, the right to correct things that are wrong, and the right to a process that is lawful and fair. Period. Look, this entire plan is designed to be your pathway out of that feeling of confusion and frustration and into a place of clarity and control. The tools are right here, the plan is laid out, so the only real question left is, are you ready to use them?